The following broadcast is intended for mature audiences. These are real people sharing very real, deeply personal experiences. This content may be considered triggering for others and for those who are sharing. The chat room is a privilege intended for discussions and sharing. You are not being asked to agree, but you are being asked to stay civil and refrain from personal attacks. Listener discretion is advised. All right, we're back. This is Am I Mental? I am your host, E. This is a live podcast where we discuss living with mental health issues and dealing with them. As always, we have the co-host KZ on here with us.
Hello, everybody.
And back from last season, our special guest, who was the final episode that no one figured out, even though I advertised her every week. We have Rachel Conway from Genuine Psychological Services.
Hi.
Yep, already we have Bexy. Hi, I'm so glad you're back, Rachel. Hello, E. Hello, KZ.
Yeah, I'm glad to be back.
Yeah, when I let some of my friends and some of the listeners know that you had agreed to come on regularly, they got really excited about it.
That's cool.
Yeah, so no pressure.
Yeah, no, I'm excited.
All right, so for those who are new here and haven't gone through the backlog of all 10 episodes before for season 1, Rachel came on and she talked about integrated family systems. I got it right that time, right?
Almost. Internal.
Internal! Damn it! Okay, I get one of the words wrong every time. I just do. Anyway, so... No, she talked about it, the pathway to getting there, and then we did a bonus episode where I went through a little walkthrough on it, and yeah, I cried, not gonna lie, it was really good, and as far as progress with that goes, I haven't found a therapist that does that here yet, working on it, but my anxiety is still nearly non-existent for anxiety in crowds because of what happened there. I mean, I know there's more work to do, obviously, because I still get the knee-jerk reaction, and it takes a while, but at least now I can just be like, yo, we talked about this. We're good. So that said, Rachel, if there's anything you wanted to add in and maybe help catch people up a little bit.
Yeah. I know E and I had discussed, I was going to do another quick overview of explaining what internal family systems is in case some people either didn't hear the last episode I was on or maybe just need a refresher. So internal family systems is a way of kind of thinking about mental health and our own internal worlds. If you could probably tell from the name, it's a little bit like family therapy, but mostly turned inwards. So the idea is we all have different parts. In fact, we're all born with different parts. And usually those parts just, might help us or whatever, but they don't really become extreme or what might seem like unhelpful until something happens, that you could call traumatizing, but it could be all kinds of different things. Any kind of as a kid, a disappointment is a lot bigger than when you're an adult. So certain disappointments even could make these internal parts become extreme to try to protect you. So let me do a quick overview if you guys can picture this. So the parts that hold really painful memories and feelings, sometimes people refer to those as wounded child parts or something. This theory usually refers to them as exiles, because usually the feelings from childhood are so big that we just want to push them down and not feel them. And so in a sense, they do become exiled by other parts. So then we have other parts that come in, like I said, to protect us. uh, you know, sometimes managers, anxiety, people who, uh, I'm one of these people. I like to plan ahead, but sometimes trying too hard to plan ahead doesn't always work. And that can become an issue. That's a little bit of a protector part, the planner. That's one example. And then there's firefighters. If we do get overwhelmed by something, a part will come in to extinguish the flames. Extreme ones are addiction, cutting, suicide is even a part that usually is just trying to end the pain.
Yeah, as if I know anything about suicide, not like I talked about it.
Right, right. But from experience that, it's, from what I heard of your story, it's, you're trying to end your pain, right?
Right. And I use the approach of I'm trying to end the pain that I bring to everybody else. But ultimately, it's suicide is very selfish, and that I was trying to end my own pain, and I was trying to find excuses as to why I should do it.
Right, right. Well, from this theory's point of view, this theory is pretty much all positive. It recognizes that some parts are extreme, but it recognizes that parts are just trying to protect us. Like just trying to take you out of your pain. By suicide. And then probably one of the most important parts of this theory is that we all have this central part of us that it's like we talked about this last time. It's like the sun. And it's that part of us that holds all the calm, confidence, clarity, all these like positive things. But just like our sun, we, you can't always see the sun if the clouds are in the way. And if your protectors are so, bent on that they have to protect you, then you may not have access to that central part of you that's holding all those positive things. But that's also very positive. That means that we have the ability to help our own parts ultimately. You need a guide to get you started and to get you kind of practicing it. But ultimately, it's your central self that's going to help you. And so, is that a good overview?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, you hit a couple of the analogies that really helped to really get it centralized. About the sun and the clouds, and it's like the managers could be seeding the clouds and keeping them there. Just because there's pain.
Mm-hmm.
Vulnerability can exposes you to pain.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So yeah, I think that was pretty good. KZ,
Okay.
you?
That basically sums it up all pretty well.
So that's the overview. Do you want me to just lodge into the topic I was really interested in talking about?
Well, yeah. I mean, this is your time. We have an hour plus, so go for it.
So I wanted to get a little bit deeper into the details of this internal family systems. One aspect of it that's really important to understand because it's so rampant, it's so just all over the places. We all have internal conflicts, and that's actually the internal conflicts is the example I give to convince people or let them know that like it's okay. We all have parts. You don't have to be like, ultra traumatized and be multiple personality to have multiple parts. And I always use the example, and this is a funny example now considering COVID, but I used to use the example of like, oh, when your friends ask you to go to the movies with you, do you ever feel like, oh, part of me wants to go, but part of me wants to just stay home and, like watch TV or relax, whatever.
All the time.
Well, yeah. And so like, or just, you can have conflicted thoughts or feelings about anything. And a really important thing that I learned about internal conflict, is that it causes anxiety. And so I don't know if it's every single time that we have anxiety, but if you have anxiety and you kind of check in with yourself, sometimes you might be able to find like an internal conflict. And I think I also want to clarify that. So sometimes there's the example I gave could be two protector parts. Part of me wants to go, the part that wants me to go to the movies would help me connect with other people, help me feel less alone or whatever,
Right.
the part of me that wants to stay home is protecting me from using too much of my energy. And, I just want to rest to make sure I have enough energy to, do what I need to do. So that could be considered two protector parts
Okay.
in conflict.
So kind of like back when we were allowed to do karaoke, it'd be like, I'd get invited out for karaoke, and there's that part of me that's like, hey, I want to go out, I want to sing, I want to hang out with my friends, I want to see if I could pump up the crowd, and I want to have some fun. But then there's a part of me that's like, I don't want to get sick, I don't want to get too drunk. I could just stay home and play some video games and have fun that way. I could sing to myself in the shower, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so I'll sit there, and then the anxiety just goes through the roof the more I try to, either push myself to one side or the other.
Yeah.
It's the commitment that gets me.
Yeah, and the here's another analogy. So the analogy for the conflicted parts is something like there's two like seamen on a boat, and they both think they're both like basically hanging over the side trying to make sure the boat doesn't tip over. And they both think if either one of them, if they go towards the center, that the boat's going to tip, but they don't realize that they're both doing the same thing. But if they somehow both like realized that they're doing the same thing and both move towards the middle, it'd be fine. So that's the thing with like conflicted parts, is usually they become more and more extreme unless you like basically mediate between the two of them and help them to see that they're both. So the trick is also these kinds of conflicted parts, if they're protector parts, they pretty much always have the same fear at the base. Like, like if you really boil down like what they're afraid of if they didn't, do what they're doing, it's like they always have the same fear. So if you help them realize they have the same fear and they're protecting against the same thing, they actually tend to relax a little bit.
Okay.
Now there is another kind of conflict, and that's between. So technically, there can be a conflict between a protector and an exile. I'm trying to think if I can come up with a quick example of. But basically, I mean, protectors ultimately keep like exiles exiled. So I'm sure you can imagine, like, a firefighter that wants to put out the flames of an exile doesn't want an exile coming out, and so there's an inherent like conflict right there.
So basically, it's like looking at the exile as a living fireball that's trying to come back in.
Yeah, and so I can't really think right now of like a really specific topic for like an exile and protector, but so I think that's the gist. Oh, and interestingly, so this is actually a really interesting topic for like cultural issues, because actually there's conflicts outside of us. I mean, obviously we know the word conflict because you can have a conflict with someone, but you can also think of conflicts when there's like groups of people that are like, going against each other, just not to bring up something totally controversial or,
Right.
heated, but you can think of the example of like people who are for Black Lives Matter and people who are just like greatly against it. Like, the more you argue with somebody against their point, the more frustrated and stronger they're going to become in their point.
Right. The more galvanized they become.
Right. So my cat is on my wire.
Yeah, not to get too political, but again, another good example is all the people that were attacking Trump supporters only galvanized the Trump supporters to be more vocal.
Right.
Just as an example.
Right. Mm-hmm. And when people don't understand the other person's like when somebody is really extreme in their viewpoint on something that I can't, like, I don't understand how they could possibly have that viewpoint, I have to realize, like, a lot of times there's something inside of that person that they're so uncomfortable with that actually represents an exile of their own, that they're so uncomfortable, like, getting in touch with, that they actually externalize their, like, dislike of that, like if there's it's kind of that saying, whatever you don't like in someone else usually reflects something about yourself.
Right. I was going to say, so what they're saying is a magnification of something they really hate about themselves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so, yeah, so it's a really, if you can do it, it's really interesting to think about, like, when somebody's getting really upset about something and pushing against something, like, it's like, like homophobia. Like, why are some people homophobic? Well, no offense, guys, but a lot of men, are homophobic because they're scared of the possibility of being homosexual or having someone think that they're homosexual or, so that's an easy example because I'm sure everyone's at least thought of that example of, like, why somebody could be homophobic.
Right. And it seems that the people that go from zero to, right off the charts in a heartbeat are the ones that are the most conflicted because they're the ones that dwell on it the most.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The most conflicted, or the strongest protectors against their exiles, the most uncomfortable with their exiles. Yeah. So, I swear this is a really positive theory. I'm not trying to be, like, critical of anyone who is that way. It's like, it's so interesting when you really, really do this stuff. I actually have a lot more compassion for other people because I've been able to get in touch with that central part of myself that holds compassion and calm and clarity and those kinds of things. So I think that's the gist of the conflict and the conflicted parts I wanted to talk about. You guys want to take a stab at coming up with an example of a conflict and see if I can help kind of clarify what's at the heart of the conflict?
KZ had one that he brought up in our little pre-show.
I did, because the possibility of a move out of state again.
And you've only been in state for less than a year?
A year in about 13 days, it'll be a year. I'll be back in California. So.
Wow. Yeah, so that's a tough one. I mean, it's tough in the sense that, like, anyone would have, like, some struggle, right, around, like, a big move like that. Would you mind telling me a little more about, like, your different conflicted viewpoints?
Yeah, no.
Before we really jump in on this, Casey, you missed the comment. Mm-hmm. Your job is supposed to be reading the comments, dude.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was just enthralled with Rachel talking.
Oh, I know. She's really good.
Yeah. Yeah. There was one. I had a discussion about about transgender individuals. The person was male/female, penis/vagina. And when tried to explain it, just got more and more mad.
And that was from Ivania.
Yeah, Ivania. Sorry there.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you for that.
Yeah, we got to show our love to the people in the chat.
For sure.
Yep.
Sure.
Yeah, I was totally I was like
Listening.
zoned in on Rachel, just
And that's
listening.
fine. Well, if you two are going to be doing a thing, I'll take over the chat for now. Don't worry about it. I
Yeah,
got
there
you.
you go.
So yeah, as far as moving, out of California again, there's the positive side of things, which obviously it's my positive thing of looking at it is I get back out of California. There's more money involved, better pay, benefits are about the same, but where I get really conflicted is my kids. And I just did the big move. My daughter's 14 years old. She's going to be starting her first year of high school. She just made a bunch of friends here. And they've kind of, we've had sleepovers and all that fun stuff. They've gone to the mall, all that. And, I took her from a huge group of friends that she had up where we used to live. And now it's like, oh, we got to go. And, this is the possibility that's happening again. And it's like, am I doing the right thing there? Which I went through the same thing when I moved from my previous location down to here. And that was a bit more of a bigger one because I had both my daughters at that point to try to consider. And yeah, it's frustrating. And then on top of it, we have my lady's parents, and that they're going to be moving the complete opposite direction from us, which is going to make it harder to go visit them and make sure that everything's good with those guys and that. And it'll also be the furthest that she's ever been away from any of her family. So,
I mean, just thinking about it, you're moving be about 600 miles one way, and her parents another 500-600 miles the other way.
I think it's more actually because they're looking. Yeah.
So maybe about 1,500 miles apart.
Yeah, I mean, their airplane tickets aren't horribly expensive, but still, it's from where we will be living, I think it's like 2.5 hours to the closest major airport.
So to try to make an example, show a good example, can I ask you a few questions?
Of course.
About the two sides of this. I'm going to ask you, I'm going to, for now, leave out the parents, the situation with the parents, and focus on the two main points. And for just a moment, let's set aside the negative reasons and focus on the pros of moving. Okay. Tell me a little bit more about why you want to move, or what would be the positive of moving.
So the immediate positive portion of this is the money. That's basically everybody's moving to make more money when they can, and it's a small step increase, but it is a step increase from where I'm at. The end game goal, though, is it does allow me to get my feet more into part of the industry that I work in. It allows me to kind of focus more on a particular portion of it that then could allow me to move on to even more bigger, better things down the road.
Okay. So ultimately, it sounds like it has to do with financial security and security, like to be able to take care of your family, something along those lines.
Yeah, basically. Kind of a short story is, my dad does the same stuff. I grew up around it, and I never went without it as a kid. You can ask, either I was a spoiled brat.
Yeah. And I mean, I saw some of the checks that were passing around. They were insane amounts.
Yeah. And it's one of those things that, now, granted, thankfully, my girls are not spoiled brats, but I would like to be able to offer them, the same style of, childhood that I had, where I never went without. Reasonably without. It's not like I, turned 16 and my parents went out and bought me a BMW. My first car was 18 years old, and it was a beater Ford, but
it was
just, right, exactly.
So
but
So it sounds like it could be boiled down to some kind of, even if it's just financial, but like some kind of protection of your family.
Yeah.
That's what it like boils down to, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. So now that we have a rough, idea of what the pros are, like what the motivation is behind the pros. So the con is, has a lot to do with, your daughter just got settled. What's it going to do to move her again?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's a con, but I also know that she is my social butterfly. And I know she will fit in anywhere that we go. It's just that internal monologue going on in my head that's like, am I making this more difficult for her than it needs to be?
So I don't know if you're picking up on it, but what I'm picking up on is that you're so whatever concern you are having, you could say has to do with wanting to protect your daughter from getting hurt or being uncomfortable with a move, right?
Yeah.
So again, it basically boils down to protecting your family.
Yeah.
So both the pro and the con of moving could be boiled down to like concerns really just wanting to protect your family.
Yeah.
So that's an example of how there can be conflicts, but ultimately the conflict is over the same thing. Just a different response to the same concern.
And there's that example you gave earlier about the two guys on the boat.
Right.
They're both trying to keep the same boat safe.
Right. So, so that's that. Any questions you guys can think of or that the chatters want to ask?
I was just going to say, it sounds like KZ needs to sit down and talk to his daughter and find out what she's feeling. And hope that she stays completely sincere about it and isn't just trying to blow smoke up your... so you feel more comfortable doing what you want to do.
Yeah. No, we, and that's my concern with her is because she is one of those. She wants to make me happy. And it's like, are you really telling me what I want to hear? Or are you telling me what you actually feel? Right. And of course, I'm like, are you sure? Are you sure? And she's like, yeah, I'm sure. I'm like, I'm still wondering, is it, but it more than likely will just boil down to the same thing that, when I made the move here is, I think in the long term, it's going to be, more beneficial than anything else to move. And, she'll, like I said, she's a social butterfly. She'll go out and she'll make more friends. And, thankfully with the technology that we have nowadays, she can still keep in contact with the friends that she has down here. And we still have family in that down here. So they could potentially, meet up and see each other.
I still don't want you leaving because this is the closest that you've been since I moved away.
I know. It's been a minute.
So Ivania is saying that she has a conflict that she's struggling with a bit. Just waiting for more.
Okay.
I was going to say, I think she meant to type a bit, but she typed a but. And I was like, well, I think depending on your butt, people have conflicts with them.
Yeah, she's struggling with a butt.
Yeah.
And then Bexy, it's so nice to me to know that there are parents who consider their kids' feelings when making big decisions like moving.
Aww.
Oh yeah, no, that's it was super hard to move down here because we spent 5.5 years where we were previously. From kindergarten for my youngest through 5th grade, and then my oldest through 7th.
Wow.
And it was tough. I had a couple options that came available to potentially keep me up there, and I didn't take them because I thought it would be a better option to come down here. So it was super rough.
I mean, at the same time, you were also closer to your family which is a good support system for your kids as well.
Well, at least part of that family.
Well, yeah, part of it. I know your family. I know your family.
Yeah. So, that is another bonus too. Is moving to where we're talking about is I will be closer to my oldest brother there, and it'd be nice to be close to him. So.
So here's Ivania's part. She fixed it. Bit. Geez, I can't type. My daughter just graduated from college. Parentheses. Yes, I do struggle with my butt. In parentheses. And she'll be falling off of her father's insurance in August. I have the option to go onto my work plan, but I will lose TRICARE forever. Wow. That's a tough one. She's 22, but I feel like now that she's in the real world, I didn't fully prepare her for the real work. World.
Real world. Yeah. That's, so she's probably going to need to get to know the part of her that feels guilty, that feels responsible for, what she feels her daughter's not ready for. And then obviously the conflict, that's a little, I feel like that's a little different. The insurance one, I guess again, she could just explore, what's the fear of, like, if she did go on her work insurance and get off of TRICARE, what's the fear there? Or what's the fear of if she doesn't and her daughter doesn't get the insurance?
You are familiar with TRICARE, right?
Oh, yes.
Okay, just making sure. And she also said, I don't know if I should let her figure it out or help her a bit longer. And then Bexy came in. We moved a lot. I went to a few different schools. The move in the middle of my senior year was the worst. And KZ's in the chat now, so okay, good.
Yep.
Yeah, so it sounds like the real conflict for Ivania, is that what it is?
Yeah.
Ivania is she has to get in touch with those parts that want to help her daughter, or does she want to let her, figure it out on her own? And what's the fear, if she helps her daughter or if she lets her figure it out on her own? What's underneath each of those?
Well, I know that Ivania and I, we do talk quite a bit, in our personal lives, and we have for a while now. And I know that her daughter does have some plans that, if they pan out, it'll take care of itself pretty quick. But it's a matter of if it pans out.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. So, anything else about conflicts?
I'm just trying to see. When I was talking about the karaoke thing, mine would actually seem pretty one-sided.
Well, I mean, technically it is two-sided. It's either you go or you don't.
Yeah.
And
it was all benefit on one side, all protectionism and boring on the other.
Right. Yeah. It's possible that could be an exile protector conflict because I'm just guessing, like, exiles love attention and creativity and, like, outlets, so it's possible that your exile was pushing you to go out and, do those things. And the protector was like, no, we're not doing that. Like,
yeah, I mean, you just kind of described my entire life, creative.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, creativity is really good for you. That's another characteristic of that central self, is creativity, actually. And so creativity really does feed your system in a good way.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, Bexy just commented, said she's always in conflict about the decisions she makes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's so common, though. It is really helpful. I love this approach. You can always check in with the conflicted parts and see if you can get them to work together to maybe come to a compromise, or maybe one gets to make the decision one time and the other side gets to make the decision the next time.
Yeah, and then Bexy was talking. Bexy and Ivania are now having a discussion back and forth a little bit here, which is great. This is part of the thing is that,
cool.
I want this to be a community, not just a podcast.
That's cool.
Yeah, I know that Bexy, she does have an autoimmune disease, so going out already is, havoc at times. And with COVID, it just makes it, that much worse.
Yeah. I told Bexy about the body keeps the score, right?
I think
somebody brought up autoimmune last time, and I highly recommend The Body Keeps the Score. The book.
I remember you mentioned the book.
Yeah, it's about trauma affecting the body, basically, and a lot of times it's expressed through things like autoimmune.
As we actually, I know that a number of listeners, whether they're listening right now or not, or listen later, a number of them have autoimmune diseases.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's like protectors that become so overprotective. The immune system protects us, right? So it's just an possibly an overactive protector who is being expressed through the immune system.
Yeah, Bexy said that she'll have to try to find it. She may have missed that last part last time. And she does try to find balance to what she does.
Yeah. That's a good way to do it.
Yeah, and Vanya was talking about, to Bexy, always wondering, what if I decided to go the other way? And that was something that tormented me, God, a good chunk of my childhood through most of my early teens. And even mid-teens, where I always just had to beat myself up over what if I had decided to do X instead of Y. But I have since learned it's just like, you know what, I can't personally care about that anymore, because once the decision is made, it's made. Like the smoke is out of the bottle.
Yeah, and honestly, so I'll just say how I would deal with it from my perspective. The way I do things now is you check in with the part that's saying what if or criticizing you for the decision. Check in and be like, well, what are your concerns? Like, sometimes just listening to parts and acknowledging them sometimes helps them relax a little bit.
All right, so The Body Keeps the Score. Is it Bessel van der
Kolk? Mm-hmm.
I just found it online. I was just going to toss a chat or a link of it
into
there.
Put the link in there. Yeah, that's a good one. I think I listened to it on Audible. It does get a bit dense, but they at least explain all of the different parts of the brain they're talking about, or different chemicals. They explain it, but if you're not into heavy medical terminology, that book might get old fast. If nothing else, the last few chapters are on the recommended treatments for trauma, including internal family systems.
And then Ivania just popped in with one that made if you saw my eyebrows suddenly shoot up, is because it was like one of those, whoa, you might be onto something there. She said, when I was married, I got 2 to 3 migraines a week. I almost welcomed them because it was the only time he left me alone and he wasn't tormenting me. I wonder if that was kind of in the realm of what you're talking about. Yep, I think you're doing
ding, ding. Yep. Yeah. So the guy that started Internal Family Systems, he'll say, obviously there are actual physical ailments. Sometimes protector parts or parts in general will trigger, physical symptoms, whether they are already there or not. To make a point. So yeah, if it helped her get out of the situation she was in, then sure, yeah, migraines. That's a good example.
Possibly taking advantage of a condition that's already there. Just going, this is the easy way out.
Yeah, and I may have mentioned it last time, but the only research that I know of, at least good research on internal family systems and its effectiveness, was actually done with patients with rheumatoid arthritis, which I believe is a autoimmune disorder. And they compared people. They gave some people, I think, just like psychoeducation, and this is how you take care of yourself to decrease your symptoms. And then they took the other half and did internal family systems. And a lot of the people with internal family systems like ended up in remission from their rheumatoid arthritis and like having a lot less symptoms. And
I'd be very interested in reading that study.
Oh yeah.
Of course, reading studies, if you haven't done it before, man.
Yeah.
break out the dictionary.
Yeah, even for me, they get a bit heavy. But yeah, what I usually do, to be honest with you, is I usually just read the abstract to get an idea of what the whole study found out.
Yeah, when it comes to genetics or diseases, I usually only read the abstract, because when I start going in on like alleles and how things are, exact responses and all that, that is so above my knowledge level that I'll read the abstract.
Right. So I think this is a really good segue into the one other topic I was thinking about talking about, is legacy burdens. So let me explain briefly what a burden is, if you guys haven't figured it out. So exiles, like I said, carry the really emotional or painful stuff, whether it's feelings or memories or what have you. Those are basically burdens. The painful, the negative thoughts we have about ourselves a lot of times, or
the things that someone that's a power figure in your young life says that sticks with you your entire life.
Yeah, although sometimes that's picked up by protectors. Sometimes protectors will criticize you to try to keep you in line. So I guess I'm glad you said that, because it made me clarify. Because I guess so when I'm thinking of the burdens, sometimes are like, I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy, I'm unlovable. The really, really painful, like.
So basically everything that's in the intro music of this podcast.
Yeah. So those are burdens, basically. So I touched on it last time, but there are such things as legacy burdens. And it's funny, I was trying to talk about and do some legacy burden work, and I had a client literally tell me, like, this is kind of otherworldly. Like, I think she was getting a little creeped out. But I really feel like some people get a little freaked out, almost like I'm inviting ghosts into the session. But it's not even that. I mean, it's what we were talking about last time with epigenetics. It's just a way of dealing with things that are epigenetic, like, they're finding more and more that things that have affected past generations can actually be passed down through our genes, because sometimes our experiences change our genes slightly. So it is a real thing.
Right, that's why you have the generational depression, generational anxiety, stuff like that.
Probably, yeah. That's what I think. It's helped me immensely understand that stuff, because I definitely believe in, genetics and obviously like depression and anxiety happening in families. But for a while there, I was like, well, maybe most of it is our experiences, but epigenetics really helped me understand that, it really does. That's how I think it gets passed down.
Right. And for the listeners, I mean, last time we went into a little more detail about the rat experiment with this orange smell, and how just the experience literally changed the epigenetics of the male rats permanently and was passed down generation by generation. So if you guys want to take a look into it a little bit more, I'm not going to go into detail, but look up the experiment that has to deal with rats, mild electrical shocks, epigenetics, and the scent of an orange. And you'll find it. It's out there, and it's really good. It's broken down really simply, has great little graphics on it. If you get it from the Genetic Literacy Project website, that's where to get it from.
Yeah. And I think I was telling E when we talked a couple nights ago. This is where I get a little. I don't know how. There's only so much I can explain about legacy burdens, especially because I don't want people trying to do this on their own. But yeah, I mean, I guess that's the gist of it, is that exiles carry burdens. When you find an exile that's carrying a burden, I mean, really all you have to do is ask, like, how much of this, was passed down to you from previous generations, or how much of this belongs to somebody else besides you, something like that. And you just ask for a percentage. That's, I mean, they can get like, and sometimes my clients will go, well, I don't know. I'm like, you don't have to know. All you have to do is ask the part, and they just know, like, parts know what they hold and what they don't. And so it's just, this whole thing is it just happens so naturally and smoothly once somebody can be comfortable enough to talk to their parts and interact with their parts.
And one thing that you're talking about, it reminds me of something. Hey, KZ, you ever watched the movie Dragon with Jason Scott Lee?
Yes.
Do you remember what Bruce Lee's father's biggest fear was? And it was also Bruce Lee's biggest fear? Because it fits right into this.
It's been a while, but...
You pass your demons onto your child.
Yes.
Oh, is that his biggest fear?
Yeah, that was his father's biggest fear, which is why he used to dress Bruce Lee in girls' clothes and taught him martial arts, was to hide him from the demons. Because his father thought they were literal demons, but sure. Bruce Lee took it more as the supernatural, metaphysical, it's an emotional demon. And so he wanted to defeat his demons so they wouldn't be passed on to his children. And that was one of the biggest driving themes in Bruce Lee's life.
Wow. Yeah, and I actually got a little bit of a chill when you were talking about that he didn't want to pass it on to his children, because interestingly, I learned a lot more about legacy burdens just not that long ago in my training, and we practice on each other. And what we were taught is when you go to do a legacy unburdening, you actually take the burden out of your child first, if you sense any of it is in them, and then I took it out of my body and passed it to the previous generation, and then they take it out of their body and they pass it to the previous generation. And then eventually they just let go of the burden. We walk through that. But I got a little bit of a chill, because it felt really good to do that. I didn't have my son physically here with me, but I imagine taking any, that intergenerational burden, that legacy burden out of him and getting rid of it.
Yeah. A couple of comments here. Bexy mentioned that after her father passed away, her mom said that her little brother, whom she adores, was the only reason why she kept living. Bexy was 7 at the time, said that's when she started feeling completely worthless as a person. Said it was rough. Thankfully, she moved past that line of thinking. That she also mentioned that, but she carried it for a very long time.
Mm-hmm.
Vanya came in and said when her son was about 14, 15, his father told him that he was no more significant than an ant in this world. I was so afraid that her son... I can't read today. She was so afraid that when her son was to become a father, that he would carry that on into fatherhood himself. So far, he hasn't, and she's very grateful for it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think I may have said this last time, but you guys, I'm convinced that everyone has some amount of shame inside of them, and shame is often expressed as like feeling not good enough, and so I guess I kind of want to normalize that, that we all carry some sort of shame. It doesn't have to be around a certain topic. Most people hear shame and they think sex or sexual abuse is something, the one thing that everyone has shame about, and maybe most people do, but I believe that we all carry just basic shame, and the best thing you can do is be aware of it and just and work on it in whatever way feels right to you to work on, and I think I said this last time too. Brene Brown does a lot on shame, and she's a great place to start to learn about your own shame and work on. She calls it shame resilience. Brene, Brene Brown. So anyway, it's something I'm still learning about, but I'm excited to have more and more people learn about it and be able to decrease their own shame.
It's actually kind of ironic is there's something I wrote on Facebook yesterday that it ties into this. It's not like directly related, but it definitely ties in, especially about the words, because now we're starting to focus on things that are being said. And I wrote, when a parent lists off all the things they had sacrificed for their child or children, what they're saying is, look at all these things I value more than my child. Look at what I have to give up for my children. When a parent lists their grievances to their own child in a self-righteous rage, they are hurting the child more than they know. When the parent demands to receive gratitude and accolades for doing what they are supposed to do because they are parents, they are telling their kids, be thankful I didn't decide to stick with the things I valued more than you. Even if those aren't the words that they're trying to say, that's the message that's coming across. And even though the children may not have the emotional maturity or language to fully grasp what they feel, they do feel a sense of being worthless, a sense of being a burden, and a sense of profound confusion as to why you kept them. And this could plant the seeds of future attempts at suicide and other self-destructive behaviors. After all, the people that matter most and should value them the most above all material things had put material things above them. My parents and I had some pretty nasty arguments, and some not so great things were said. However, I cannot recall a single time either of my parents went so far as to make me feel like I was a burden or worth less than material things. The only times in my life either parent listed what they had done, it was always to show their love and value of my sister and myself. It wasn't, you ungrateful brats, here's what I gave up for you. It was always more like, what do you mean we don't love you? You got list of things, and we have done list of things, because we love seeing you happy. Never listing what they gave up.
That's good.
It's why there's no list of what they gave up? It never crossed their minds because we were valued and loved. Words matter. Words have consequences. The consequences of my parents showing their love and devotion to my sister and me had the consequence of giving us a feeling of self-esteem and value. And only as I dive deeper and deeper in objectivism do I see more and more clearly how exactly awesome my parents really are.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. That's very insightful for somebody who didn't get that message, the negative message,
I always kind of made myself a victim. I've seen it more and more as a child. I tried to make myself in more of a bad position for, I have to say it had to be for manipulation. I'm not that person anymore, so I can't really tell as well anymore.
Yeah.
But looking back on it now, I was a spoiled brat. I was. Not gonna lie. My parents did everything they could, and there were times where they ate light because money was tight, and my sister and I, we ate till we were full. And it never crossed my mind back then. So yeah, Mom, Dad, if you're listening, love you guys.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's cool. And that's why, I don't know, you said maybe it's because you've been in a lot of therapy, but I remember I was impressed with how much access you had to your parts last time, even with it being the first time, and how much compassion you had for your parts right off the bat. And I'm guessing, it's partially because you had that great foundation.
I would have to agree. It's everybody has their struggles. Everybody has their differences. Just because Bexy's life, you compare mine to hers, it's apples and oranges. Hers was way more rough than what I went through, but that's not to minimize my experiences. And just like, some of my experiences were pretty rough, and it's not to minimize other people's experiences that go, wow, you had it bad.
Sure. Yeah, for sure.
And I'm getting love from Ivania and Bexy. Love you guys.
Yeah. I mean, basically, one of my clients was just saying it today. I mean, we all have trauma. It's just, I talk like the trauma therapy world talks about it in terms of big T and little T. And I think I said this last time, some of us do have big T, some people have been whatever, those PTSD, the post-traumatic stress disorder, like actual criteria. Those are probably the big T, little T is still trauma, being forgotten at the store or being forgotten at the school or all kinds of things, they're still traumatic. Maybe they don't meet the criteria for PTSD, but they still leave their mark,
When you're really young, that really leaves a big mark.
Right. And coming full circle, that's what, we believe that our parts become more and more extreme depending on how many and how intense those experiences are. What else? Is there anything else I should say about legacy burdens?
That's up to you. I don't know. I mean, what you fear about going too far because this is part of your job. I don't know because I don't know. It's like even if you're doing the Dunning-Kruger effect, I haven't even got to the peak of Mount Stupid yet. So,
I was thinking. Yeah. Well, I mean, I was thinking about that that part you got in touch with last time, and how, in a way, that was an exile. I think because it felt alone, right? It felt kind of like.
Oh yeah, complete abandonment.
Scared that it was abandoned. We could. We could explore if any of that is. I feel good because you didn't get like overwhelmed or flooded when you got in touch with that part, and you were able to like relate to that part. So that's all really good. We could probably explore if any of that is a legacy burden.
Whew, man, we are did not see this coming. Yeah, I'm down. I mean, I think so. Whew. It's scary thinking about it though.
Okay.
Not gonna lie.
So, okay, that's okay. Get in touch with what's the fear or concern. What's the fear about?
If I remember correct, yeah, that was my social anxiety, which stems from when I got lost in a crowded store when I was really little. Okay. And I wound up coming up next to someone that wasn't my mom, thinking it was my mom because they were wearing this kind of similar height, kind of similar build, corner of the eye kind of, oh, that's my mom. Get next to them, say something, look up, and absolute stranger. And stranger danger kicked in.
Okay. What I'm curious about is right now when you realize that we might go forward with this, you said that's freaky or that's scary or something like that. What's the fear right now with doing this?
Oh, just the encounter of it itself, of doing something new.
Oh, okay.
It's like, that's another thing about me is I don't like new. I don't like change. I do have a bit of Peter Pan syndrome, but I mean, obviously I do push through it. This podcast wouldn't exist if I, stuck with my change adverseness and all that.
Okay. We do want to do a quick check-in with that part. Does that part need to express anything more about this fear? Does it need anything, or can it step to the side and let us explore this?
It's pretty quiet.
Okay. Does it feel like it's accepting? Because so it can stay right next to you and watch and jump in if it needs to at any time.
Yeah, it's like there's a little bit like if I had to do a scale of 1 to 10 on anxiety, anytime I'm about to do a show that's not about me, I have about a 2 because there's the technical issues that could pop up and whatever.
Okay.
When it's a show about me, my anxiety can jump up to about a 5 or a 6. Right now, it's about a 4.
Okay. So go ahead and ask what that part's afraid of if we went ahead and moved forward with this exercise.
I think it's the fear of the unknown.
Okay. How do you feel towards that part or that fear?
I actually share the concern. I fear the unknown myself.
Okay. So I think it's fair to say you understand it.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
I mean,
So go.
that part is basically me from a long time ago.
Okay. The fear of the unknown.
Oh, yeah. And also the fear of the
Okay.
abandonment.
Sure. Let's start with the fear of the unknown because that's the one that has the fear about us moving forward with this. So how old, that fear of the unknown part, how old does it think you are right now?
Basically my whole life.
Okay. So probably starting pretty young.
Hold up 1 second here. I'm getting knocked on the door by the wife. She hasn't quite figured out that it's not a hard 1 hour. I'll be right back.
Oh, okay.
He was mentioning the getting lost in the supermarket there.
Mm-hmm.
I did the same thing when I was a kid. We went to the Price Club, the predecessor to Costco and that. And my dad had me go run down an aisle to go get something. He's like, "Oh, we'll be right over here." And I went running down the aisle, grabbed whatever it was I was going to grab, came hustling back to find him. And I'm looking around. I didn't see him, but then I saw somebody that I swear it was him, same, like same outfit and everything. And I ran over and I hopped on the side of the cart and I looked over and I realized it wasn't him. And it was not so much stranger danger, more like complete embarrassment.
Mm.
And oh God, yeah, I hopped off that cart real quick and looked around, and sure enough, there, about 20 feet away there, my dad was. I was just like, oh, I'm glad he didn't see that.
Yeah. 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 So, yeah, it was really interesting. Did you hear that episode when we did that? Or I guess it was technically the bonus content.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was listening to it. Yeah.
Yeah. He went from kind of like fearing social like situations or big crowds, like kind of situations, to realizing I was impressed very quickly, realizing that it was this part that was afraid of abandonment, afraid of getting lost in the crowd,
Yeah.
So that's understandable. So Eric, he had to step out for just a minute, and hopefully we'll be back.
Yeah, he put something there on our chat. There's something about the kiddos. So
yeah,
I should just throw the headset on his cat there and do part of the episode.
right.
So while we're waiting, Bexy and Ivania, do you guys have any questions you would like to ask, or I know we're a little behind on the audio and that, so they're going to be shortly. But see if we can find some time filler here while we're waiting for him to come back.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I'm trying to think. Oh, one thing I thought about the legacy burdens. A lot of like cultural issues are very much tied to legacy burdens. Again, my mind goes to Black Lives Matter, and how I was just mentioning that a lot of cultural issues are like our legacy burdens as well. Things passed down, of course. Most people are at least somewhat aware that like racism is passed down through families. Well, that could be tied to maybe some kind of legacy, something.
And I'm back.
Yeah.
So long and short of it is, with the new longer episodes with more of a flexible time now, where we kind of quit when it feels good. The wife is used to the hard 45 minutes with the little 15-minute post-show wrap-up. So she's freaking out about, I don't know what time anymore. She's like, the kids are in the waiting pool and I have to pee. So I'm like, all right, go on mute, run out there really fast.
Real quick before we get too far here, Bexy mentioned that she had an epiphany / insight last time you were on, Rachel. So her epiphany, she always had anxiety in crowds. Had heard about a head injury she got when she was 3, but never remembered it. Tonight I relived it. I felt it happen. My family was shopping. I was in a buggy. No one was watching me like they were supposed to. I stood up as 2 of my siblings were pulling the cart back, and fell forth, fell out, felt herself fall, felt myself hit the concrete floor, and felt the pain. Said it was an extremely eye-opening.
Wow, that sounds really powerful. So so fear of the unknown. I get that you've had that fear, maybe your whole life or most of your life. When you ask that part that holds that fear of the unknown, how old it thinks you are, what do you get?
I'm getting a mix of ages.
Okay. Throw out a few of the ages that you're getting.
Like 7, 14, 18.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah, it's all over the place.
Okay. Take a moment, and you can just mentally do this, but go ahead and update the part with what's different about you now than when you were 7, and all of those ages. What are you capable of? What are you, all of those things.
Well, I'm capable of understanding better now. I'm capable of protecting myself.
And even tell it how old you are.
Yeah, so the 7-year-old part's pretty happy. The 14's pretty happy. The 18-year-old, not so happy.
Oh.
Yeah, well, seems pretty true to how I was when I was 18. I know I don't know everything, therefore everything I assume must be correct. Because I have that knowledge that I don't know everything.
How does the fear of the unknown part react when you update it to your age and your abilities?
I said the younger parts, they felt comforted by it. Like, okay, he's in the driver's seat. He's got this.
Okay.
That 18 one doesn't trust.
Okay. What are his fears or concerns if he trusts you?
Wow. It's one of those things where I'm debating whether or not to share it on the air.
Okay.
It's a biggie.
Okay. Just
let's just say that it was a betrayal and discovery that someone older who's in that kind of position that should be able to handle this stuff gave just an unbelievable amount of betrayal and let down and showed unpreparedness after all.
Okay. So is this 18-year-old, is he carrying a burden or is he protecting you from something?
I don't know. Maybe a little bit of both.
That's a good. Okay, so ask him if he's protecting you from something like, or is he protecting another part, basically?
You know what? I'm going to throw it to you in the Skype chat really fast so you can see.
Okay.
Just so... I'm sorry, everyone that's listening. I'm not quite sure how to word this.
Well, while you're typing that, Ivania mentioned that she's got social anxiety, but it didn't develop until well into adulthood. And she knows what caused it, but it was more of a conditioning than a single moment or a single experience.
Yeah, that makes sense too. Yeah, burdens can be comprised of many memories or many experiences, and that's fine.
You know what? I got a better way of doing it other than the chat.
Oh. Oh. Yeah. Mm. Okay. Oh, right. Okay.
Sorry, guys. I muted you guys out so you couldn't hear what I was saying. But now Rachel has a very good understanding of what I'm going for here. It's just this one. I could talk about a lot of things. This one's maybe in a future episode.
Oh, okay. So I'm still curious if this 18-year-old part feels like he's protecting another part. Um,
There's maybe protecting the innocence that just kind of vanished right then and there.
okay. Okay. Um,
To kind of give everybody an idea, just listening, someone that I used to be able to confide in with everything and was someone that I trusted for a good chunk of my life had started sharing things that I would say in the utmost confidence, and I started hearing them through the rumor mill. And it was just this ultimate betrayal.
hmm hmm Um, so do you understand what, why the 18-year-old feels the way he feels, the way he reacts and the way he doesn't trust?
Well, as the one person that I should have been able to trust above all else stuck a knife in his back.
And so you understand where he's coming from, huh?
I do.
Yeah.
And if I'm
Okay.
asking for that level of trust...
Yes. Yeah. So let him know you understand. You understand why he feels the way he feels.
I'm basically telling him, I get it. That was me.
Right, right.
I am you. I'm just you further down the line.
Right, right. That's good. That's good. That's also a little bit of an update. And how does he respond to your words, your message?
Accepting but cautious.
Sure, sure. And that's understandable. Um, if you could really help what he's protecting, and help him, what would he rather do instead of work so hard to protect you, protect this innocence?
Hang out with friends and play Dungeons and Dragons.
No.
I mean, 18-year-old stuff. Go see the girlfriend.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And what is
And yes, I'm going to say it, get
wants.
laid.
And what does he want or need from you? Just to like support him.
Just needs me to trust that when there's a red flag thrown up, that I should at least investigate it.
Mm-hmm. And is that something that you're willing to do?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
I mean, as who I am now, I'm 43. That's kind of my job.
Mm-hmm. Um. Debating whether to. So let me put it this way, and it's okay if the answer is no. I am curious if the 18-year-old would allow us some access to the exile, what he's protecting, and let him know that I don't plan to do anything major except maybe just offer this exile some support, some compassion. I mean, that's as far as I would take it.
You know those old speakeasies with the slide open door? The little slide open,
So.
the little slide open so you can see the eyes. And,
Oh, yeah.
That's about the access that you're being given.
Okay.
And yeah.
Okay.
It's like the answer is not no, but it's really close to it.
Well, what's the fear or concern if he gives us access to the exile?
Feeling that level of pain again.
Okay.
That betrayal.
Right. And so, E, do you feel like you can handle it? I mean, knowing that if so I could help you unblend if this part, like if the exile, like, tried to flood you with emotion, I can help you separate from it in a way where you could just feel compassion towards the part.
I'm already feeling really bad for the part, if that helps.
Okay. So does it feel like it's coming from the part or you're feeling bad for it?
It's definitely more towards me feeling bad for it.
Okay. Um, I'm sensing that might be a separate part that feels bad for it. Can you check in and see if that's a separate part?
Yeah, that's my peacekeeper. That's what I call him.
Okay.
And Bexy's quite familiar with the peacekeeper. Anytime there's any kind of because we've been in a number of chat groups together, and I think Ivani can testify to it too. When there's conflicts within the group, the peacekeeper comes jumping out real fast.
Mm. Do you, do you have confidence that you and I can handle this? Or are you blended with a peacekeeper, maybe?
I think, honestly, and I know that I try to do everything on the air, but I think this is something that I don't want to do on the air. I don't know where I will be at the end of it and what kind of state I'll be in.
Yeah. Okay,
I think that's definitely a more of a safe, controlled environment thing. Where right now I have the wife that wants me to hurry up, and I have kids that need to go to bed soon.
Yeah,
I don't need to be going out there bawling my eyes out. Okay, kids, let's get ready for bed. And then both, what's wrong with you, Daddy?
Yeah, no, I really respect that you're listening to your parts and you're respecting that, what they need right now. I would ask you to go ahead and send your appreciation to the parts that did interact with us today.
And it's kind of weird because I grew up in an area where everything's all like new age and mystical hippie stuff. And I know KZ knows exactly what I'm talking about as I see us nodding his head. So it's like the way that you're doing the therapy, it kind of really causes little red flags to pop up because we've heard this kind of stuff before, but this is definitely different in that I'm seeing how it works.
Mm-hmm.
Where I listened to the stuff from before, and that stuff was just hogwash.
Yeah, well, I appreciate you trying and allowing me to try. And I'm sure it was still a really good example of parts and talking to your parts and relating to your parts. So.
I mean, if we were to do this off the air sometime, I would love it. Or if you could find me a therapist that does what you do up in my area, I would love it.
Yeah.
Because I would love to get through that. I mean, obviously, I could feel there's definitely something there. Definitely something I want to address. Now that I know it's there, it's like on Fight Club, the cut in the roof of your mouth that would only heal if you would stop tonguing it. Now it's going to be that kind of a thing.
Oh, I see. Yeah. Well, at least you have some like basic skills of like the examples I've given you of how to relate to your parts and just sending them understanding and acknowledgement, and especially if you can send compassion to them, that's great. So.
Yeah, and I think that if my dad was listening to this, he'd be like, "Oh, that's hippie shit."
Yeah.
No, but seriously, Dad, if you're listening, and I know you do listen, and I know that you listen fairly often, this is not hippie shit. I wouldn't be allowing this on my show if it was hippie shit. No offense to the hippies out there.
Cool. Right. So.
Yeah, so, I mean, we've been on for almost an hour and a half now.
Yeah, any last minute questions, comments?
I mean, of course, thank you for coming on the air. Really appreciate having you with us.
Yes.
Yeah, it's like when at the end of the season, season 1, that was the most common question, is if you were coming back. It's like, yeah, it's like that's why she's not on the list to vote who the listeners want back, because you're already going to be back. You've agreed to come on regularly. Love having you on. I'm sure that the rest of the people that are listening appreciate having you on. KZ, you?
Yeah. Yes.
I mean,
yes,
you really bring a lot to the table. You bring a lot of tools, knowledge, resources, and I mean that's invaluable. It really is.
Thanks. I appreciate it. No, and I like I said, I really appreciate your podcast, what you're doing, and so I feel honored to be a part of it, and so thanks everybody. Thanks for the support.
Yeah, and if you decide to start your own, we'll support you. We'll help you out.
Yep. Thanks.
Yeah, I know that you've kicked around the idea a little here and there.
Yeah. I just gotta figure out what to do. I mean, clearly, it's probably going to be internal family systems. So.
Yep. Bexy's sending you some love.
Go ahead, Eric.
It says, I will look forward to hearing more from you, Rachel. I learned something new every episode. You truly are invaluable.
Aw, thank you.
I did my first mess up there. I dropped your name again.
Oh, me? Oh, it's fine. Who?
E.
Oh, okay. That's okay.
He's getting the middle finger right now.
Hey, at least it took it to season 2, Mr. First Episode.
Oh, I know. I get it. But all the guests, almost every guest Rachel dropped my name.
Yeah.
Not this time.
I dropped it again when you went out of the room.
Oh no!
I was trying to explain that you were out for a moment.
But yeah, no, seriously, and like I said, I wish that more people would go on Facebook and tell the things that they tell me in chat there, so others can see it too. But that's okay. I get it. If you want to keep your anonymity, by all means, do it that way. That's part of the reason why I did find someone that's going to build our website. And we're going to go ahead and set it up where people are going to sign up their names with forums and all that. So you can keep your in-chat name and your episode names on the forums. So that way, if you do discussions, you don't have to reveal who you are.
Interesting. That's cool.
Bexy named, yeah, you did. Yes, you did. Episode 2. When KZ missed that episode, I got dropped. Oops. And then, Ivania, I would like to hear more from you and perhaps pick your brain one day, Rachel. You might beat me if I don't try. I'm not going to beat you. I'll just passively aggressively abuse you, that's all.
Yeah.
But all in good humor.
As you can tell, I love talking about this stuff, and I love, I don't know. Someday I wanted I like teaching. I'm actually thinking one day about putting together a retreat, where I can talk about this stuff and lead people in meditations and stuff.
Well, I mean, it seems to me that you're kind of on the cutting edge, like a pioneer in this new field.
Yeah, it's just now becoming popular. It's actually been around for a while, but it's definitely not widely known amongst therapists, but it's becoming more widely known.
It sounds like that it's beyond the evangelical state now, where you stand on the box yelling about it. Now you're starting to get acceptance, and that's a good place to be.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And now Bexy, Ivania, and I are all picking on each other. Ivania said that I was lying. Bexy said that I would hire someone to do it, though, and I said capitalism. Ivania, no, LOL, no, he enjoys getting under my skin. And Bex, of course, right on, brother. He's like a rash that won't heal. Oh, ouch! Ouch!
Ouch.
Ooh. Man, I might have to throw that one up on Rare Insults, because that was a good one.
Right.
Now I'm being compared to herpes, just a part of life. What did I do to deserve this? Yeah, KZ knows. Rachel's learning. Yeah, after you just talk to your husband, he'll tell you why you deserve all this. Yes, I know that you love me, Bexy. I know, it's just the way we are. We show our love through picking on each other. All right, so if anybody else has any questions, we'll give a couple minutes here to get them in.
I'll have to think about what I want to do.
Ivani's laughing her ass off right now in chat.
You guys are just having too much fun harassing each other.
It's part of being one of my friends.
Yeah.
But if anybody else came in out of the blue and tried to pick on you, it'd be like that Big Brother thing. I'd have you step behind me, I'd step in front of him and be like, you back off or I'm going to bust your face in half. Mm-hmm. And it looks like we're not getting any questions. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
All right. Well, again, thank you, Rachel, for joining us and sharing more of your knowledge and experiences and helping walk through things. Oh, Ivania popped in really fast. Seriously, the burdens and protectors concept would play nicely into what we talked about. Yeah, actually, it would. I know that Rachel has one particular guest that she'd love to get her hands on. I'll see if I can arrange that. That would be a lot of fun to have that on the air. But yeah,
Rachel, I got a quick question for you.
Okay.
Just because I ran into this the other day, and I've never come across somebody like this. I'm just curious, like if there's just a term for it. Like I know I have internal monologue. I talk to myself. I do that. I'm sure Eric does. I'm sure most people do.
there are people that don't.
That's what I'm curious about, because I was talking to somebody the other day, and I was like, yeah, I was just thinking to myself, and you had that, talking to myself, and I'm going back and forth in my head, and it just kind of looked at me totally weird, like, you what?
I think, and you'll have to tell me your experience of this, but I think that might be a sign of some anxiety. And I say that from personal experience because when I was younger, I used to have like an internal monologue or dialogue, where I'd think through things or talk through things. I don't do that very often anymore. I'm trying to think if I do it at all, but I have a feeling that's like when you're really, like when you're unsure or anxious about something, maybe you're talking through it.
I know I do that a lot when I am anxious. But I'll still do it even like if I'm in the shower and I'm about as relaxed as can be. I'll still go ahead and have an internal monologue at times, or dialogue between me and playing devil's advocate with myself.
Oh, I thought of another good way to explain it. Another really interesting thing that I learned in my training is about a lot of people, especially people with kids, might have heard that kids have different ways of learning. Like some kids learn, visually, some learn auditorily, some, I wonder if it's kind of like that, where if you're a very like auditory processor, maybe you're more likely to think through, like have that internal monologue or whatever. So that might be another way, like to might be part of the explanation.
Yeah, that does make sense. And yeah, KZ did another name drop.
He did.
Yep. So apparently my name got dropped a few times tonight. Wow.
Tonight, yep.
Wow, guys. And I was just saying that we should have a name drop scoreboard on the website.
Right.
It's like golf. You want your score low. Have to have columns, KZ, E, guests. All guests lumped together. All right. So I think that's it.
Yeah.
Cool. All right, yeah, you want to go ahead and drop your business again. Go ahead and promote yourself a little bit.
Oh, sure. So I have a private practice here in San Diego. It's primarily in Mission Valley, and also trying to move some of my caseload up to Encinitas. Although, as you can imagine, with COVID, I'm 100% online right now. So I just do individual therapy. I tend to specialize in trauma, like treatment of people with some kind of trauma. And yeah, that's basically it. Oh, the name of it is Genuine Psychological Services.
Yes.
And I chose that name because the letters are GPS. I'm working on a tagline, like helping you find your way or helping you along your path.
Oh, that's clever. I like it. And yes, you can find her page. She does have a Facebook page. She has an Instagram account. Do you have anything else out there so far?
No, but just, like on Instagram, it's GPS Psych Services. It's probably that on Facebook too. It's probably the last part of the web address would be GPS Psych Services. I just changed my website name back over to gpspsychservices.com.
Okay. And also on Facebook, if you're already following the Am I Mental page, you'll see that I actually put links to Genuine Psychological Services in the last few things I've sent out. So you can just click on that to go there too.
Sweet.
Hey, see? Got your back.
Thanks. I'm really excited to continue working with you guys.
And I'm definitely excited to continue working with you. And again, if you decide to start a podcast, you know that we can help you out with that. And we'd be happy to do so.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah. All right. So until next week.
Yeah.
Have a good one. And good night, everybody.
Good night.
Night.
Inside, but now do you see?